Hey,
Hello,
hi.
hello. Yep, well, that was very smooth. Let's do it again.
In the times of brick phones, Tamagotchis, and curtain bangs, the 90s kids cried out for a badass. She was Xena, the warrior princess. The kicks, the moves, the nostalgia, the queerness. Xena made us gay. Hi, I'm Alyssa.
Hi, I'm Kris. So what I want to talk about this time is why are we talking about Xena in 2023? Like clearly there are many other things out there, but we and quite a few other people, like this is definitely not the only Xena based podcast in the world. Um, why are we still talking about Xena? What is it about this show?
Hmm. Yeah, it's a good question. Thinking about it yesterday, I googled some Xena merch on Etsy,
Mm.
and I found a lot of cool things like chakram necklaces, chakram rings, just Xena overall Xena outfits, Xena beanies, and those are all quite recent. So it just really means that people are still very much interested in Xena. For me personally, why I think that I can still rewatch it and it holds up for me 100% is that I think still in 2023, I wanted to say 2022, uh, the series and movie industry struggles to give us a good female lead, a complex female lead, a story where you show a woman being strong, but do not make it all about stereotypes and do not make it all about we need to push an agenda, which I think happens a lot, like was happening a lot in the recent, I would say, 5 years, where people from the movie industry was like, oh, you want feminism, let us give you feminism, and it seems very shoved down the movie maker's throat. It seems like there was a script and then someone from the producers came in with their notes and like, oh yeah, but make it feminist. And you see, for example, characters giving speeches where it's not necessary, or like fighting battles that are absolutely not necessary to fight. And I think Xena being from the 90s, for me it holds up and is more inspiring in a way than a lot of recent movies and shows.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. I also think that um, generally, currently, what's happening in our culture is that there are a lot of remakes, a lot of revivals, a lot of sequels. That's kind of what the zeitgeist is focused on, not necessarily on producing something new, but on reproducing or slightly modifying and making a new version. Um, and I'm quite grateful that that has not happened to Xena yet, even though as we see, it is so popular. And um, it is kind of an original product of its time. Uh, yes, it is a spin-off, but it it doesn't feel derivative. It feels very much original and in a way that is is missing, I think, today with a lot of whatever complex female characters coming from comic books or from reboots or from whatever the hell. And I'm hoping that it stays this way for Xena, that it doesn't um, get sucked into this reboot economy. Um,
Oh yeah.
but that's one of the reasons. But there is kind of the flip side of that, where um, currently the culture is a pretty heavily nostalgia based, and we
Mhm.
are kind of part of that currently with our podcast. And it's not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. It's just that's how it is. And specifically, what I think is interesting for me with the Xena, and our podcast title very subtly alludes to that. Um, kind of looking at um, gay culture from quite a few years ago, because now, yes, there is a much more vibrant and much more mainstream cinema and TV industry specifically centered around queer characters. That was not the case in the 90s, um, but it still had this very strong influence on a lot of people, maybe in part because it was such a scarce time in terms of queer TV. And it's interesting to re-examine it from that point of view, and see how it did the queerness that it produced, and how that affected us as people, and maybe trying to extrapolate it a little bit in terms of the wider community.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, it's amazing to rewatch the episodes from the very beginning, and like every time I rewatch Xena, I notice those little breadcrumbs, those little bits of subtext that was in there the whole time, and I just didn't see it. So yeah, with that, maybe we can continue with the episode.
Yes, the episode number 2. It's called Chariots of War.
And there will be chariots. Spoiler
And there
alert.
will be war. So, correct title. Congratulations.
Yeah. Um, I am very happy at the very beginning that we see a town. I'm a fan of how the series, the Xeno series, does towns and like larger communities, and how it mimics modern um, like places that people go to in like the 21st century. So I'm happy that we're in a town and we're in a sort of like a bar,
It's a
right?
tavern.
Uh-huh.
It's a tavern, and it's clearly quite seedy, which Xena immediately clocks. And
She has been around.
yeah, I think Xena has a very good uh, intuition in terms of what places are safe and what places are trouble. And Gabby is still,
And Gabrielle does not.
yeah, Gabby is still quite clueless about that. But then some dude drunkenly harasses her, and she's like, "Oh yeah, let's get out of here."
Oh, yeah, that's one of those. Yeah, let's go.
Mm.
So then our girls have to part, right? Mm.
Yes, they do. For reasons that are not like super clear to me, Xena needs to like go out there and like scout out the road, something something. It's it never becomes clear, and it never becomes important. So I guess who cares?
Yeah, so Xena leaves Gabrielle behind and strolls off into um, the magnificent scenery of ancient Greece slash New Zealand. And we immediately are introduced to our main side characters.
Yeah, so there's there's this dude. His name is Darius, as we find out. He looks like a C-list porn star, I would say. He has a smooth face. He has 90s appropriate kind of longish hair for a guy. He wears this shirt that is kind of like open enough for us to see his shaved chest that he clearly pays quite a bit of attention to in the gym. But he has this like very generic face, which is why I put him on the C list.
And a bit of a smolder when when he smiles and squints his eyes. It's this go-to move of like, oh, I'm attractive. Do you see that
Yeah,
I'm attractive?
yeah. But of course, the character is less about being smoldering and more about just being a great single dad.
Yeah, and we find out that this family comes, oh, actually, this whole community comes from Troy, which is helpful for those poor Xena fans that were trying to determine where in the historical context to place her. But as I understand, people tried to do it and then really figured out that Xena is about 1,000 years old. So we'll
Yeah,
just leave it at that.
yeah. It's one clue, but it has nothing to do with all the other clues that we get that tell us anything about the current time period. And so these people, they are from Troy, but they had to relocate, and they are rebuilding a barn that was destroyed by some random people, and then this barn that is still being rebuilt is randomly attacked by random attackers.
So the villains, they just come and they just randomly start attacking people building a barn and um, destroying that barn because for some reason they have a very big beef with barns and farming and people making food supplies generally.
Yeah, yeah. Later, they explain a tiny bit why they have to keep attacking this village, but just
It's
because
not a good enough explanation.
it's a horrible explanation. Like they tell us the reason, and the reason makes no sense. Um, so sure. Maybe they are just very against child labor, because we see that Darius is just like telling his kids what to do, rebuilding this barn. So maybe these random attackers just really care about labor laws.
Concerned citizens, that's what we're going to call them.
Absolutely.
So concerned citizens try to break the barn that is not very sturdy to begin with, and the little boy, one of the children of our smoldering dad, is trapped under the barn, and of course, who saves him? Xena.
Yeah, Xena sweeps in, and defeats the random attackers, as of course she would, and hands the saved kid over to the dad. At which point we get this brilliant dialogue, which is the dude says, "Thank you. Who are you?" And Xena answers, "A friend."
Our girl is concise. He doesn't need to know more than that.
That's fair. That's
Uh,
fair.
but after that, the concerned citizens start firing arrows at Xena, and she catches two of them with her bare hands, but the third one gets her.
Yeah, that's generally what happens when you don't have three hands. But that made me wonder, like, did she and Draco from last episode practice together? Because he was catching arrows with his bare hands, and now
Yeah,
she catches arrows with her bare hands. There are two explanations. Either they were practicing together, and they're like, "This is clearly a skill that we will need as
attending an arrow catching seminar together. Yeah,
exactly as badass warlords," or it's just part of the standard curriculum. Like anyone who wants to be a badass warlord in this world has to attend catching arrows with your bare hands seminar, because obviously it's such a needed skill.
Absolutely. So then we immediately go to um, the plot line of Xena being wounded and Xena suffering in silence. And I was very happy with that storyline. I completely forgot about it. And I think that mostly men get those storylines in movies, and that's like a very popular kink, like our hero is all wounded and he's suffering, but he's taking it bravely. And a woman usually takes care of our hero. And it's nice to see the role reversal here. And Xena is smoking hot in all those sequences.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But actually, that kind of that reminds me. So before we get to the nursing scene, we get the our intro,
Yep.
and we discussed the intro in the last episode. But one thing that stood out to me this time is that the intro ends with the phrase, "Her courage will change the world."
Her courage will change the world.
Yes, thank you. And it's interesting that they went with courage. Like out of all of the words that they could choose, like she's essentially a demigod, she's super gorgeous, she's badass, she's a great warrior, she's all of those things, but they specifically decide to go with courage, which is
Hmm.
um a cool choice, and also I think a word that is not often associated with like badass women, or generally like
Yeah.
strong female characters, um especially those that are not like all about protecting their family. I think,
Yes.
yes, we hear a lot of stories about like, oh, a courageous mother that is like super self-sacrificial and whatever, is not afraid of anything to protect her kids or something. But like this specific type of courage that Xena exhibits, that is more about, being a warrior and putting herself in danger, not just for her little nuclear family, but for things that are right, or for protecting the innocent, that have nothing to do with her. That is quite rare, and that also is a cool reversal of like the roles that male characters normally are able to have, but not female characters.
Absolutely. Yeah, like I think the series generally treats Xena as a hero, as a badass, and it's not like oh, she's a hero, like a female hero. Like the
Mm.
hero but like with female approach to being a hero like a lot of series have. Like here there's none of that bullshit. She's just a hero. She's courageous.
Yeah,
She kicks ass.
absolutely. Um, Another thing that I liked. So once we get the intro and we see the nursing the scene, the scene with Xena being treated by our smoldering dad, is that like it's it's left somewhat ambiguous, but I guess what happens is that he like removes her top to treat her wound,
Definitely, yeah.
and that is, there's no acknowledgement of that whatsoever, neither by her nor by him. It's like super casual, like, I need to treat your wound, so I'm clearly gonna remove this garment that is in the way of me treating your wound. um and I like that. I feel like that is also super rare, that a woman being topless is just kind of like a matter of fact. um
Yeah. No reaction like, "Oh, boobs."
yeah, yeah, yeah. Neither from her nor from him, which yeah, I liked.
Me too. Yeah, like, good on him that like focuses on the task at hand, which is, let's say frankly, it's a very important task. But Xena, I think, remembering the episodes, I don't remember Xena ever being shy of her nakedness. I think she's like, "Yep, like that's me," and she doesn't have any of those bullshit. Oh, I'm going to cover myself when I don't know. Both for the purposes of like I'm being shy, and for the purposes of like a camera is sliding. So I also like that.
Yeah, I'm having like slight flashbacks to some scene where she's like um fighting someone while naked, and she
Mm-hmm.
has to like cover herself with objects.
Fish. I think fish at that time.
Fish. Oh my god.
Right.
Um, but yep, fish. Yes. Um, but we'll get to that when that scene happens. But yeah, as I said, the task at hand is super important. It's literally removing the arrow that Xena is shot at. It's quite intense. Like the dude has to push the arrow through her.
Yeah,
Um,
it was like very. What if you hit important organs that were not hit when the arrow went there?
I mean, to be fair, like it makes sense that that's what she tells him to do, because they like the arrow is stuck in her, and how else would you remove it without
Yeah.
pushing it through? But yeah, that is quite intense. So he pushes the arrow through her torso, so it comes out the other way, on her back. Then he breaks the arrowhead with his bare hands. Like, how easy is that? I don't know. It just made me wonder how how difficult it would be to break an arrowhead with one's bare hands. Also, without hurting yourself.
Yeah, the arrow is quite thin and it's made of wood, so I guess it's possible. But yeah, you have to be a super buff porno dad to do it.
Yeah, I like Porno Dad better than Smoldering Dad. Actually,
Yeah,
let's call him that for now.
let's stick to that.
So he does that. He pulls the rest of the arrow out, and then he cauterizes the wound with a hot poker. Well, actually, no, he doesn't. He because he's like,
She does.
yeah, he's like, do I need to do that? That seems kind of intense. And she's like, give me the hot poker. Let me do it myself.
Yeah, and immediately collapses after that, which, oh my god, yeah, I can imagine. Absolutely. So then we're back with our concerned citizens in their camp, and we have an expositional dialogue. Hello, father. Yes, my son. When we see the two the two main villains fight each other to practice, I guess. But I guess it's okay, the expositional dialogue here, because they're villains. But yeah, those are villains for the episode. They do not have any other motivation. Just going ahead, apart from we are warlords, we kill randomly, and those villagers are peaceful. Therefore, we kill them. They are insulting us by being peaceful farmers.
And it's all like justified by them invoking Ares. They're like, oh, we need to serve Ares, and it's unclear like whether they have an actual direct relationship with Ares, since we will later meet Ares. Like, it's not, they're
Yeah.
not being like figurative necessarily, like, oh,
No, no, no.
our god, whatever, whatever. Like, gods are very much real people, quote unquote, in this world. So it is possible that they just like meet up with Ares, and he project manages their random village destruction.
Yeah, I like the word project managers because, yeah, I feel that gods in this universe act very much like Hollywood producers. Like, oh, I want this hero, like this talent in my camp. And like a lot of warlords throughout the series are quote unquote auditioning for Ares, basically like being badasses the way they understand it and doing ridiculous shit to trying to attract his attention. But of course, we know that Aries, our producer, has a sweet spot for Xena's talents.
Oh yeah, and we'll learn a lot more about their relationship as the series unfolds. We're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. So yeah, we meet our villains. It's father and son. The son has these horrible white boy dreadlocks, and the father also has like a creative hairstyle, but I couldn't figure out what was happening there.
Just a
Um,
mess. I think that his dreadlocks are just they're like 20 years old, so that's why they look like that.
sure, yeah. Um, the dialogue between them is spectacular. Um, insofar as the son at one point says, "Today I killed a great warrior in the belly." Um, yep,
Good for you, dude.
that's a phrase that a person might say in their life. Um,
Hmm.
and of course, the father then finds out that the great warrior was a woman, and shames his son for um, not being badass enough, which ends up being kind of the crux of their relationship. That the son isn't badass enough. The son can't live up to the expectations that the dad has, and also there was another brother who got killed, and I guess this other brother becomes this unattainable standard for the remaining son. Um,
Yeah.
it's all very sad, really bad parenting skills,
Yeah, I think it's one of the few villains in the series with daddy issues. There's more to come.
for sure.
But when we come back to Gabby, who has no idea that Xena has been wounded, she's doing the all talking to the bartender shtick. And that's why I love to see towns, because here we see a tavern, of course, but the dude behind the tavern bar behaves like a bartender. Like, for example, he gets really annoyed when Gabby asks for water instead of an alcoholic drink. I thought that
Yeah,
was a nice touch.
yeah, it's cute.
So yeah, Gabby decides to wait it out in this bar, and here we leave her, and we come back to Xena, who is well enough to tell kids some gory stories.
Yeah, she tells some stories from her past about her fighting, I think, the Cyclops.
Yeah,
Um, and she's about to tell them about how she stabbed him. And Porno Dad walks in. He's like, "No, no, 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 keep it, keep it PG, keep it PG." And she's like, "Yeah." And then I took a feather, I guess instead of a sword. And
yeah.
the kids immediately are like, that sounds dumb. Like, what can you do with a feather against a Cyclops?" And she's like, "Well, no, I had a whole goose," which, I mean, that does sound kind of cool.
That does sound kind of cool. I love it. Then Xena learns the marital situation of the guy.
Yes, then we find out that one of the kids doesn't talk. Like we see that before, that she doesn't talk, but here it's directly addressed. And Porno Dad casually slips in that it's been that way since we've lost her mother, which I'm pretty sure he only says to go wink wink. I'm single, Xena. Wink wink. Let's fuck.
Yeah, I mean it's totally like that from the creator's point of view, but maybe he also has like some hidden agenda with that.
Right. And then some random villager comes in to the house to be like, "We don't want this warrior lady in our village," and confirms that it's been indeed quite a while since Porno Dad fucked anyone. So we're supposed to feel really bad for him.
Yeah, like Dyrus, I understand that there has been a while since there was a woman in this house, but really, Jesus, Xena? Okay, I don't get it. Yeah, and after Xena overhears this passionate exchange, she, of course, wants to get up and leave in a true Xena fashion.
Yeah, she definitely is not well enough to leave at that point. As we later find out, the next day she's completely healed, like 100%, absolutely fine. But that evening she's still recovering, and
She needed just a few more hours of sleep.
exactly. And she keeps trying to leave, and uh, keeps failing at that because she's not well yet. And at that point, Porno Dad says this line: "Are you so brave that you fear someone caring for you?" And
Ah.
it's a much more interesting line of dialogue that I expect from this episode. Like it's just a throwaway line, but it's a very cool way of putting it, I think. This aversion that a person might have to being taken care of, um, as kind of a side effect of their bravery, and like what it means to be brave, and how that affects other fears that one might have. So I had to like pause and at the moment be like, "Are you so brave that you fear someone caring for you?" Like,
Huh.
not bad, not bad.
Yeah, it's a great line of dialogue. Actually, this episode has solid dialogue throughout.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of solid dialogue, the next thing that happens is that the concerned citizens light the barn on fire, and
As they do.
as they do, because fuck seeds, fuck crops,
Yeah.
fuck anything that is not war. Um, and Xena and Porno Dad hear something happening, and Porno Dad is like, "What's that?" And Xena's like, "Trouble." Xena continues to provide great amounts of information when requested.
Yeah, Xena is concise here, but that's
Yes,
why we love her.
indeed.
And then we go back to Gabby in a tavern, still waiting for Xena. And this time she has trouble fighting off the punks that harass her.
I mean, one single punk.
I mean, I would assume that had if she wouldn't pull the stunt that she does, there would be more. But
Yeah,
she
possibly.
immediately, after a dude tries to harass her and is like, "Oh, like what are you doing here?" And she's like, "I'm waiting for my friend, and my friend is Xena." So she's name dropping the name of the warrior princess, who, as we know, is not only famous hero, but at this point more like famous murderer,
Hmm.
famous person who wreaks chaos on everything. But the dude is unfazed.
Yeah, and his first reaction is like, "Oh, let's have a threesome all together. I'm into that." Um, sure. So Gabrielle then changes her strategy, and instead of Xena, mentions her big, strong boyfriend, um,
uh yeah.
because heterosexuality is scarier than a literal warrior princess.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's like also very lifelike. I have like in my younger days when I have been hit on a lot,
oh.
I have mentioned having a boyfriend or a husband because at some point it's the last resort. It's like the last thing that you have to mention for dudes to leave you alone.
Yeah, yeah, unfortunately, that is so. Um, but the dude kind of calls Gabrielle's bullshit. He's like, "No, you don't have a boyfriend," and she doesn't chicken out. She just goes for it, commits to the bit, and goes and kisses an absolute stranger who turns out to be our white dreadlock guy who shot Xena. And
Absolutely.
shockingly, the stranger doesn't mind.
Yeah, I mean, why would he? But also, I like that Gabby describes her boyfriend as a strong, jealous type, polishing his lethal sword collection. And I
Yep.
wonder if that code for jerking off.
Yes, yes, it is.
Good to know.
Yeah. Always happy to confirm your
Provide context.
suspicions. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So back in our offensively peaceful village, Xena totally Wolverines herself to perfect health the next morning and is carrying around heavy baskets, no problem. She's just totally fine. Wounds, what wounds? Then we go back to the tavern where White Dreadlock guy and Gabriella are still chatting, and they're workshopping their backstory. Okay, so if we're dating, who fell in love with whom when, talking about that, and then somehow it comes up what Gabrielle is doing in the tavern. She mentions that she's waiting for her friend. She describes her as 6 feet tall, dark hair, lots of leather. I mean,
Oh yeah.
sign me up. Sign me up.
And there's going to be another issue with lots of lever coming up.
Yes, yes. Then they start talking about their parents, and Gabby's talking about how she had to make a choice about what kind of a person she wants to be, and what kind of life she wants to for herself, and breaking away from her parents' expectations of what her life is supposed to be like. And she says, I'm grateful to my mom for raising me, but I can't pay for that with my future. Which is like another line that is more interesting than I expected.
Yeah.
It's really well put.
Yeah. Yeah. We once again see that Gabrielle is good with words.
She is, but also it's a I don't know. I just really liked how she phrased it, and it's obviously something that's very much applicable to um
A lot of
r-
kids and a lot of parents.
yes, yes, paying for your good upbringing with your future is, I think, something that a lot of kids feel pressure to do.
Yeah, really, with the main conflict of the episode being so black and white and so simplistic,
Mm.
actually, the things characters say to each other, it's much more complex.
The white dreadlock guy also recognizes this phrase as very insightful, and Gabrielle is like, it's a gift. I
Aww.
love that style of accepting compliments. That's something I strive for, to be that casual about
Oh
accepting
yeah.
compliments and being like, yeah, duh.
It's just me.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Gabby is an example here to all of us. Mm. And then back in the uh, creepily peaceful village, more creepy stuff is going on because Darius suggests they have to go to like basically a city council to meet the concerned citizens, aka killers, and to try to make peace with them, which is like a bad trend at this point.
Hmm.
And Darius is like, you cannot go wearing all leather. You're too sexy and too like a warrior. So you have to wear this. And he wants her to wear his dead wife's clothes.
It is very creepy. Also, Xena's like, I've never worn anything like this before, and I wonder what exactly she means. Like what? Femme or some dead person's clothing? Cotton instead of leather? Cerulean. The dress is a pretty blue color, which also really stands out from every other person in the village. Everyone else is wearing grayish. Um,
Yeah.
and Xena is dressed in this beautiful blue
Cerulean. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
blue dress, which makes me wonder how expensive that dress was. I don't think that kind of a color was easily accessible at the time.
No, no, but yeah, the coming like getting a little ahead of ourselves, this dress is not going to survive well the things that Xena needs to do.
Yeah, yeah. So before the concerned citizens go to the town hall meeting and supposedly make peace with the villagers, we find out that they actually are talking about how the plan for the meeting is not to make peace, but to kill them all. Um,
Yep.
and specifically, the white dreadlock guy is supposed to do that to prove to his dad that he's worthy and shit.
Yeah, the kill them all is a detrimental phrase. Whoever says that phrase, we know that they're going to be dead by the end of the episode, and it's true.
Yeah. So the dad is trying to convince White Dreadlock guy to go on a murderous rampage against these offensively peaceful villagers. But the guy had this little therapy session in the tavern with Gabrielle, and he's kind of having doubts about all that. Um, so then he goes to the town hall, and there he like lectures the people that he attacked about how violence is unnecessary and that we need to communicate openly and honestly about our needs and expectations. Like,
Bullshit, 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 bullshit.
yeah, but also, like, insert your quote unquote favorite colonial struggle, and I'm sure that there were people that had to deal with similar rhetoric coming from their colonizers.
Absolutely. And I loved how his speech, and he's standing there very sheepishly because he understands that what he's saying is bullshit and he's not convincing. And he says things like, we need to keep communications open, which is such like recognizable political blah, blah, blah. That, yeah, I think the screenwriters did a good job here once again.
No. Xena, of course, immediately notices that something's off and immediately somersaults into a closed window above the roof into another room that the bad guys are hiding in and fights them, and before starting to fight them rips the dead wife's dress because it's impractical and she needs to be doing high kicks, so no hesitation, just rips it open and is ready to fight.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that scene where she was like, "Huh, 1 second," and she she holds her hand out to the bad guys like, "I'm not ready," and then she rips the dress like, "Okay, now I'm ready,"
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
immediately starts kicking.
yeah. And she kicks the bad guys' asses, and for some reason Porno Dad is mad at her for that.
Yeah, because he's in the non-violence cult at this point.
It's so random. He's like, "Oh, I've been down that road of war and it only brings suffering." Which, I mean, sure, but like at some point you have to do something else other than hold your hands up in the air and let yourself be murdered, which is something that Xena tries to tell him. And we
Yeah.
get yet another interesting line, which is, your suffering will not be eased by letting men like blah, blah. Your suffering will not be eased by letting men like Cygnus crush the innocent. Which Cygnus is the name of the white dreadlock guy. Um, Again, very well put. A more interesting line that what I think I tend to think of as a typical Xena episode line. Um,
Absolutely. That's I'm thinking now that maybe part of the reason why it's still relevant, and that part of the reason that I fell in love with this series in the first place, were that the dialogue is actually very good. And yeah, I don't know. I think different people hang on to different things. For me, good and recognizable, relatable dialogue is one of the first things. Like, I think the plot overall can be shitty, but if characters talk and I can enjoy it, then sign me up.
yeah, oh, kind of what Tarantino essentially does a lot of the
That's
time.
why he's one of my favorite directors.
Yeah, yeah. Then we get a plot twist. So it turns
Mm,
out that White Dreadlocks guy's brother was supposedly killed by Xena. So the father says that this guy was killed by Xena, and
yeah,
the the White Dreadlock guy is like, "Oh, I guess I need to avenge my brother's death. Let me go kill Xena now."
kill Cena and then kill everybody, and the father is like, "Fucking finally, yay! I can see the fire in your eyes now." Like
Mm-hmm.
he was trying to get his son there, but we have a little insert scene after that. One of the villages from Porno Dad's village uh, comes to concerned citizens and punks and says, "Oh, Xena is not with us. So the fact that she stopped you or whatever, it's not our fault. We still want to negotiate peace with you against all odds." And I think the father says like, "Yeah, you'll find peace, eternal peace. Now go back and await the slaughter." And I'm like, okay, good, very, very subtle, very good ways to deal with the situation.
Yeah, yeah, lovely. Then we finally get to see the chariots from the episode
Yay.
title. For some reason, they're riding chariots on this, like, I guess
River?
it's like a river, but it's almost completely dried out. It looks great,
Yeah.
but it's unclear whether there's any reason for them to be in this river other than it looks cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take it. Also, I think, and I'm not sure that I'm right, but I think that chariots are the vehicle of villains. Only bad guys ride chariots in the series, and I wonder, is it because it's kind of associated with being a Roman thing, and we know how we feel about Romans.
No idea. Could be.
Yeah.
Um, so then,
As our guys are moving forward in their chariots, Gabby and
yes,
Xena are having a chat.
yes, and she is talking to Xena about how she met this guy in a tavern, and she has this super weird heterosexist rant about how maybe she's supposed to marry the white dreadlock guy and have his kids, even though the whole conversation that she was having with the guy in
Yep.
the tavern was about how she does not want that. Like, it feels like someone else wrote those lines for her, where she's like, "Oh, maybe I'm supposed to uh breed with him and what was that?"
I don't know. Yeah, it felt a little bit like Bridget Jones' moment, Gabby's Bridget Jones moment to me. Like, it seems like a quote from the book where she was like, "Oh, I met a guy today. I'm sure that we're going to get married and have 7 children. The youngest name would be Jones." Like, something like that. It's very random and very, um, I don't know, 90s dating pattern of her.
But it feels also so out of character. Um,
Yes, yes, that's true. Because Gabby's thing is like, I'm not like other girls at this point.
and she
So
literally talked to the guy about how she doesn't want these things. I just it makes me mad.
yeah, no, it doesn't make much sense. But I liked how she described him like, Oh, and he was cute in a rugged, outdoorsy sort of way. We're like, okay, Gabby, that's that's one way to describe this dude.
Yeah, yeah. Also, I love how 90s that description is.
Yes, absolutely. So Xena hears that the chariots with our villains are approaching, and she says to Gabby, "You need to provide a distraction." So she wants Gabrielle to go up on Argo and start riding. And Gabrielle is like, "I'm not good at this horse thing," and I like that because that is consistent. I think throughout the first few seasons, Gabby is going to be not good at this horse thing. And then Gabrielle sits on the horse, and before she rides away, she's like, "If I die, I'll never talk to you again."
Aw. Also a very 90s line, I think.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And then as Gabrielle is riding on a horse, and Xena manages to hijack the chariot of the villains' sidekicks. So now the villains are riding on a chariot, and Xena is riding on another chariot, and there we have this Shakespearean theater reveal when Gabby is like, "Oh, it's you," to the villain's son.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Then they fight for a little bit, and pretty quickly everyone falls out of the chariot. So now it's just fighting on the ground. Um, Xena then realizes that yes, this dude is the one that Gabby met in the tavern, and is clearly so frustrated. She's like, ugh, remind me to talk to you sometime about your taste in men to Gabby.
Xena's is no better.
Yeah, yeah, that is true. Then she just Xena just doesn't give a fuck, fights an armed guy with her bare hands because
Yeah.
why not? Yeah, she
I
loses her
guess her
sword somewhere and she just fights him with her bare hands.
Yeah, and she left the chakram at Porno Dude's house.
Yes, yes. Obviously, she wins the fight, and the she fights specifically the dad, um, and meanwhile, Gabby is trying to convince the white dreadlock guy that he can make a choice and not be an asshole, um, which he which works. He ends up
Mm.
not being horrible, um, and Cena kills the shitty dad.
Who said kill them all, so that was inevitable.
Right, right. Um, then we're back in the village, and she. Uh, so we're back in the village, and Xena has this also weird hetero moment with Porno Dad, where
Oh
he
yeah.
essentially proposes to her,
Mm-hmm.
and she's like, "Oh, maybe someday. I haven't before, but now I'm kind of considering it."
Yeah, that's weird. That's weird.
What? I just don't get, like, suddenly everyone's super straight, and he's like, "Well, I hope you find your happiness," and she says, "I did. I just have to leave it for a while." Oh, it makes me want to puke.
Okay, okay. In the series' defense, I think that what they meant here, that and I think it happens a couple of times throughout the series, that Xena is not in love with the porno dad. She just wants this peaceful life, quote unquote, because we have
Mm.
this moment where she's trying on his dead wife's dress. Ew. But still, she's trying on the dress, and the dress is like very feminine and is not a dress that you do any fighting in. And she looks at herself in the mirror, and I think that she has this moment of realization of like, this could be my life. I could be this peaceful. I could have a home and just do mundane stuff. And in this point, Porno Dad and his three children is like a package deal of this peaceful life that she kind of yearns for a moment, but then realizes that it's not for her.
Yeah, it seems like from this episode, it seems like both Xena and Gabby have this residual attachment to heterosexist norms of what their lives are supposed to be all about. And they do like actively choose to avoid following those norms. They both are like, nope, I'm not gonna get married. Nope, I'm not gonna be a random farmer's wife. But even though they make these choices not to be with men but rather to be with each other, it still feels like a sort of a loss to them that they're making
At
this
this
choice.
point, yes. At
I
this
think
point, yes.
that's going to change.
Definitely. Also, I know that this is beginning to be repetitive, but I still kind of feel here that Xena, in theory, might be leaning more bi at at least at this point of her life, and Gabby more gay because apart from like, oh, I might get married to him bullshit, it seems like Xena kind of really was considering at for a moment staying with Porno Dad. They had some sort of a spark at the beginning when he was treating her wounds. There was some spark there, and I think that Gabby's relationship with the rugged outdoorsy guy was a total friend zone. And when they chat at the end, it's like they're pals, but they don't have any inclinations of like to touch each other or to kiss or anything.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's fair for this episode. I'm still on the fence whether I agree with your placement of these two on the Kinsey scale. But
Okay.
I'm not going to argue against it at this point yet. Let's see how things unfold.
Yeah, yeah. But at the end, we get another reassuring thing about the main character's relationship. So Xena asks Gabrielle, "Do you ever miss your family?" And Gabrielle answers, "Yes, but not as much when I'm with you." Hmm.
Aww. Um, yeah, but that kind of speaks to my point about how it still feels like, to them it still feels like their relationship represents also a loss of a family,
Mm-hmm.
whereas later
Mm-hmm.
on they will come to realize that what they themselves have is a family.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're each other's family, and we get that pretty early on. I think in this like next seasons, but not yet, which is good. I like the development of their relationship.
Yep, me too.
S- So, how many chakrams do you give this episode out of 10?
I I really liked a lot of the lines of dialogue in this episode, and I think this episode did a good job in terms of raising questions and topics that are relevant to regular people's lives, in terms of
Mm-hmm.
their relationships with the parents and making choices for their own future instead of just following the paths that the parents um, have in mind for them. I was really mad at the scene where Gabby is suddenly forgot everything about herself and was like, "Oh, I should breed with this outdoorsy guy." So, if not for um, that part of the episode, I would give this episode um, 8 chakrams, but
Uh-huh.
have to take off 1 chakram for that horrible rant, and so it's going to be 7 out of 10 for me.
Okay, okay. For me, I think it's 8 out of 10 because it didn't bother me as much, and I liked it a little bit more than the first episode. I think they're picking up momentum, but yeah, I know that there are much, much, much more banging episodes to come.
Yes, absolutely. But overall, it's a strong start to the series. So last episode we gave 7 each. This one we
Mm-hmm.
gave 8 and 7. So we're starting strong.
Yeah, we started strong. And it's not a very common thing for long series. A lot of the times, The first few episodes are not flops, but like they're harder to get into. Hi, Schitt's Creek, we love you, but your first episodes are a little tough.
Indeed, indeed. But if you're out there and you've given Schitt's Creek a go and you saw a few episodes and you're like, nah, I don't think I like this, please, please stick around.
Yes.
We know that the first few episodes are not the best. It is a bit of a struggle. We can swear on our lives that it will be worth it if you just stick with it a little longer.
Absolutely. Like first 2 or 3 episodes and then you'll fall in love. Guaranteed.
Yeah, well, it might take longer than that. We can't make promises, but just don't give up just yet.
Okay, on this note, I think that we're wrapping things up. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, and we'll see you next time for season 1, episode 3.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.